Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Searching for Political Identity. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to be with you. Quick favor to ask, could you please like this video, share it, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Because not only am I genuinely, of course it's genuine, come on, trying to find my seriously, trying to find my political identity, which is a serious intellectual exercise, but I'm also trying to become a podcaster, a successful podcaster. It was never about the money, and it isn't about the money now, but I would be lying to you if I said that after 3 years of doing this and hopefully getting a little better, that I wasn't starting to ask myself, well, would it be possible to not compromise my exercise, this project, and also try to monetize it? So I'm starting to have those thoughts. And the very first step would be to ask you to help me grow the podcast. So I did it, and I probably will do it again next episode, letting you know in advance. Thank you so much. I just had a wonderful multi-hour conversation with Cezary. I don't know that I could even try to pronounce his last name, but we'd been in touch for a few weeks, almost a couple months even, and we finally hooked up and had a really great conversation about what he's built, his website, what it is. It's a world, because every website could be a world, right? Big world, small world. This is a big world website. You could think of it as like a stock market for ideas, for political ideas. It's the perfect place for a person like me trying to find their political identity. What does that mean? What is his website? Why would I say that it's perfect for a person like me who's searching for political identity? So we talked for a few hours, like I said, mostly about the system. And we'll have another conversation another time, which I'm really looking forward to, about what he believes and what I might believe, and the get into the meat. But we really talked about the structure that he's created, why he created it, and there's a lot there. It's a great first conversation with him. But yeah, things are going really well for me. I just want to say before I let that roll, I saw Aladdin last night with my girlfriend. I'm so in love with my girlfriend. Period. Aladdin was probably the best production I've ever seen, except for Hamilton on Broadway, which I was fortunate enough to see. The show's been going great. I've been enjoying doing the live streams. I don't know if you've caught any, but if you watch on YouTube, they go into a different folder. But I'm putting them all on X in my highlights tab, and now I'm uploading the live streams that I do to all the other podcast platforms as well. So I'm integrating. I'm learning to see what I like to do. I like to do these live streams in the morning once, twice a week, and I've realized that I can go ahead and just throw them in as solo episodes. Screw it. That's what I'm doing. So I've been enjoying that. Hopefully you have as well. And the other show news is that I'm guesting on Larry Sharp's YouTube panel show on Monday night. This is going to be the biggest audience that I've ever spoken in front of. And again, I'm nervous because I'm the host. I don't go on people's shows often. And when I do, it's not with ideas really to be challenged on. It's really just with questions. And so I'm nervous about how that might go, but ultimately, I'm sure it's going to be great. I don't know who the other panelists are. I had Larry on my show a couple weeks ago. Totally recommend that you listen to that. I also recommend that you send me money. No, um, do listen to that show. Nice insight into the mechanics of libertarian party politics. And I guess Larry enjoyed it enough to think that I might be a good fit for one of his shows. So that's Monday night. Excuse me. And that's really all I have to say. Enjoy this show. This was a cool one, and I got another episode tomorrow that I'll be recording and probably releasing, which I teased in my most recent live. So I won't waste much more energy here teasing a conversation that you're not about to listen to, but I'm really looking forward to the one tomorrow. Okay. On a roll, you might say, with this podcast. And it's largely because of the confidence I get from you guys, the audience. So thank you so much again for being here. Seriously, it means a lot. Have a great day. Adios. See you next time. Bye. Cezary, welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Big fan
Yeah.
of the show.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know you are as well. So you saw me coming, I guess. We must have connected on X. And it must have been, correct me if I'm wrong, that you saw me and said, "Oh, I got something for you, bro. I can help you. I've got something for you." Because I'm searching for political identity, and that's really what my entire presence on social media is about. That's what my podcast is about. Searching for truth, searching for what makes sense, what I believe in, searching for my political identity. And are you the creator and founder of what we're going to talk about today, which is Egora? Or tell me about your relationship to Egora.
So we're going to talk about a lot of things because so this has been going on for the past 6 years or so. This whole project, this whole enterprise, right? Um, it all actually started with kind of with the whole Trump presidency, and I don't even remember exactly what that was, but I was looking at Facebook, the media, and I'm like, man, politics is just crazy. Like it's just crazy. Like this stuff does not make sense. They say that we're a democracy. I know my voice doesn't matter. So wait,
Mm,
there's some
mm,
disconnect here. What's going on? And then I started thinking, what if there was a political party that just tried to make sense of things?
mhm,
What's so hard about? Well, that's actually pretty hard, but why
mm,
what's so controversial about that, right?
mhm,
So then I started thinking, I'm like, what if there was a logical political party? They just try to be logical about things, right? and and then I actually took that question seriously. And then I'm like, okay, how would that really look? And so I thought about it, I thought about it. Um, as a result, I arrived at the concept of the International Logic Party.
mm,
So it's logical because we make sense of things. We
mhm,
value rationality. What brings us together is not an ideology, but rather the common value of making sense.
mm,
And that might not be your personal highest value, but
mhm,
when it comes to doing politics, that has to be the value that brings us together. Because if it's not, it's gonna be a shit show. Sorry for, pardon my
fine.
French, right?
We can curse
So
here.
so yeah, if we're gonna work to like if you and I are gonna work together, we have to do that reasonably, or it's gonna
Mm,
be a mess, right? And if we
mhm,
bring more and more people into it, we have to do it reasonably, or it's gonna be an even bigger mess, right? So, anyways, but we expanded that to the concept to include international because the idea is that we should be open to ideas from across borders. There might be people doing things right in other countries. And if you take a look, you will find that there are there are a lot of countries doing things really well. A lot of people are a lot happier with their governments, and in
mm,
Scandinavia, for example. So we should be learning from that. We should be open to that. Okay, so this is a long story. I'm going to try to wrap it up here. But the point is that the International Logic Party cannot be about an ideology. So it has to be about a process that is self-correcting. It's open to
mm,
critique from both within and from outside. All of that is welcome, right? It's always self-refining. It's always questioning, are we really doing things the right way? I mean, we think we are, but what if we're not, Of
mm,
course, that has to be in a constructive way. It can't be, like endless skepticism that's just self-sabotaging, right? So the question is,
mm,
how does this process look? How does that work? And the fundamental answer is democracy. It's just real democracy, right?
mm,
But it's not ordinary democracy. It's democracy of philosophers, of people who aren't just blabbing their opinions, people who are diligently developing their own political, social, economic, existential philosophy. So basically, in essence, it's a system where the philosopher has the advantage over the demagogue. The demagogue will try to give you cheap, superficial solutions that are going to appeal to the masses. Free bread for everyone, free circus for everyone. Like, go to the Coliseum for your entertainment and snacks, right? So, okay, so sorry, I kind of lost my thought.
no,
I gotta have a sip
the
of water.
purpose, take a sip. So many things. This is why we already know we're going to have multiple conversations. But we could almost start with this distinction between rights from God and rationality as a value, right? Ultimately, we're going to run into that. And as you speak, and because when I was in high school and college, I was pretty much an atheist, and I'm probably an agnostic now. Always been a skeptic, still am. So I like so much of it is appealing to me. I would talk to my best friend's older brother Matt, and when I was in high school and college, about things like this, and he would always say, "But how do you arrive at morality?" And this is obviously going to come up as it does in previous interviews that I've seen you do. But if you have a party and a process that's so focused on rationality, are you missing something? So that's one question, right? And we talk about the will of the people and democracy. And so political philosophy is endlessly interesting. So we're talking about a pursuit of what's good and what's best. And the logic party would say that efficiency is good unto itself. And look, I get it. I'm all into cool tech and efficiency. Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to know. I have something to comment on that, but go
Go.
on.
No,
Please go on.
I I prefer if you commented.
Okay, so I want to take a few steps back. How did I come about challenging the political establishment? Uh, I didn't come out of nowhere. I've been a philosopher and an activist for a really long time. So, what I mean by that is that I spend a lot of my time thinking about ideas, developing ideas, trying to improve those ideas,
Mm.
usually in writing, because frankly, writing, you know, it, I read this book about writing once. I don't read many books about writing, but I read this one and I never finished it. But the core thing that it was saying, and I think that was in the beginning of the book, it said that if you don't develop your ideas in writing, you probably don't understand them well enough. Like you actually
Mm.
don't get it. And and through the course of working on this project, I realized that you essentially have to listen to yourself talk. When you like really listen to yourself talk, and especially like if you say something one day and then you listen to yourself the next day, you will often have this reaction like, I kind of like I know what I was trying to say, but I really don't like how I said it. I know that this really didn't make as much sense. But this is what happens when you write. When you write and edit, you write something one day, then you come back to it and you're like, wait a minute, is this really what I want to publish? Is this
Hmm.
really what I want to share with the world? No, I can do better than that. And so writing forces you into this really rigorous refining process. Not to say you can't write a bunch of crap. A lot of people do, but it's still better than you just blabbing your mouth on the street without having thought about it previously. So that's a big thing. So, anyways, I was saying I'm a philosopher, right? So I've been doing this. I've been working on a book. Honestly, it's been a monumental challenge. It was actually an ethical theory. It's interesting that you bring up that because yeah, ethics is kind of like the beginning of where things get real or things actually matter, right?
Mm.
And so, as a philosopher, I've been approaching it from a an amoral perspective. So, without morality, I think you can do ethics without morality. So you can do, you can have
And that
moral
would be
ethics.
like part of my interruption, but that would be like a humanist, and you can explain that to way better than I could view, right? That I would always say to my friend Matt when I was a little younger, I would say, hey, you can achieve ethical outcomes without a need for this God, this outside body, human interactions. So sorry to have taken you out of your flow, but are you saying that you can get ethics? You don't need a God to have ethics. What do you mean by that? If that's what
A
you
lot
meant.
to, a lot to say about that. But okay, so let me bring this to include the other part. So I've also been an activist for a long time. I actually, and I said I was going to try to focus on the system and try to not talk about my ideas within the system, but this is kind of important. I've been an animal rights activist for a long time. Actually, I that has been kind of a lot of my thinking as a philosopher has been oriented about that, which is let's just say you view the world very differently once you admit and accept that other animals are also persons, which means
Hmm.
they're deserving of ethical consideration. Most ethical systems have been developed by humans for humans. for how to exploit the rest of the world, how to, just get the most out of the rest of the world. When you actually look at other animals as persons, you're going to have a very different worldview, and you're going to see the world as much more messed up than most people think it is. It's the the world is a horror show, actually, when you look at it from an animal perspective as
So
opposed to.
interesting, because when I was looking through some of the content, and we're not going to focus on the content, we're going to get back to the system. Um, but I saw one of the posts was about the whether or not it's ethical to own an animal at all. And I was like, oh, is this kind of suggesting that I can't own a dog? And some of the language, when I read some of the ideas, is talking about humans. And I said, oh, I got to talk to Cezary about aliens. Is he? But I see it's not necessarily an alien or an extraterrestrial point of view that you're referencing, but you are referencing an out of the human view, which is the animal. And so is that fair?
Well, you got to remember, animals or aliens are animals too. And I think that's the fundamental thing. I think this is what's actually really interesting. People have all kinds of, uh, yeah. Actually, when you look at the animal as the core of your ethics and core of your worldview, it actually unlocks a lot of reality for you, because even the supernatural, you could say, what it really comes down to is desire, is analyzing desire, the different types of desire, and how we negotiate to satisfy the different types of desires. Like, animals are hungry, they feel hunger, they feel pain. And again, it's actually really complicated, because you could have uh, what, a jellyfish, that's also an animal, a sea cucumber, but then you also have rats, you also have uh, insects, and all of them experience probably, reality a little bit differently. Yeah, especially once you get into mammals who start to develop relationships with their young, with their parents. Yeah, it's so. Anyways, my work as a philosopher has been trying to structure that. It's almost like a periodic table of different experiences, and then how do you build a world out of these different elements? And how these different components construct us as persons. Um,
Mm.
so not to get too much off topic, because I was trying to bring this to the International Logic Party, um, but that has been influencing a lot of my thought, and I've been an activist. I've been sharing ideas, so I've done a lot of like street activism, doing a lot of leafletting. So this might be foreign to most people, but I've had a lot of experiences, just like, giving out literature on the street. Yeah, a lot of people don't do that. Do this, encounter thousands of people, and and get this kind of sense of what it's like to try to
Yeah,
talk to.
what's driving you, man?
What else is there to do? It's like, what else? I mean, I suppose I find everything else boring. It's, I kind of have an engineering mindset. Actually, if you look behind me, these are some of the coolest Lego creations
Hmm.
that I've ever made. That's actually like a glider. I've had a rough test. What I need is a wind tunnel to see if this thing, how well it really handles. But the other thing is like a single track tank. Tanks normally have two treads, right? But this only has one, so it has to bend in the middle. I
Hmm.
guess I like overcoming challenges and solving problems. So, and the biggest problem that I've always recognized is how messed up the world is. When I was little, my mother
Hmm.
was telling me there are starving children in Africa. I'm like, well,
Hmm.
what the hell? How come we don't feed them? Like, what's the problem here? This is
Right,
insane, right?
right.
So how do you
Interesting.
solve? So how do you
So
solve that?
you're like the Batman of the Logic Party, all right, with your gadgets.
I love Batman, man.
Come on, you're welcome. No, but that's interesting. A desire to help people. Some might call that, no, it would be unfair to call that a progressive urge to want to solve problems. That's probably not fair, but and we don't really need to get into just yet a conversation about political philosophy, progressivism, conservatism, all this. Let's continue to back it. I do want to ask you about aliens. What do you think about aliens? And then we'll get to the logic party. Seriously,
I knew you were going to ask me that. I
good.
was hoping that you would, and I
And
was
I can
thinking,
answer first if you want, if you think it's fair.
what would I respond? Uh, if you want, I mean, we've all heard your perspective on all
Okay,
the other
good.
episodes, right?
Go
I mean,
ahead.
I've watched your episodes. I've been watching. I
Oh,
like.
that's really sweet of you.
It.
What would you say my position is?
Uh I'll be honest with you. Can I be honest with you? Okay,
Yes.
I don't want you to think I'm being rude. I don't
Go
want to be
ahead.
attacking the host.
No, go ahead.
But I'm a cynic. I'm a tremendous cynic. Actually, I don't want to give out my email, but my email includes cynicism in the
Tremendous
name.
cynic at Hotmail.
Something like that. And basically, what that means is being able to see through people's BS, like like essentially
Mhm.
follow the money. Like, what is it really that motivates people? Like, why are you really doing this?
Mm.
And I think, okay, so sorry if I'm being hostile here, but
Not at all. Go ahead.
I think it's kind of it's the way that I perceive it. What you're doing is like it's almost like being a flat earther, and
Mm.
I've come to the position that real flat earthers don't exist. Nobody is actually
Mm.
dumb enough to think that the Earth is flat, knowing everything that we know. It's like
Right.
people have known for thousands of years. So the question is, why do people say it? Because it's clickbait. That's
Right.
what it is. So I think this a
Hey,
lot of
man,
the
that's fair. Hey, I asked and you answered, and that's totally fair. And my response will be, first of all, like that is fair. I mean, hey, but why am I doing it? I'm not doing it for that reason. Number one, it's not resulting in any benefit to me. The clicks aren't there. Um, so it actually, I would say, isn't that. For some reason, the corner of X that I stumbled onto when I got onto X, and the only reason I did was because I suddenly found myself with a podcast pursuing an interest like you're doing with this project, which we're eventually going to talk about. And for some reason, the corner that I stumbled on had all this stuff about aliens, and I just discovered this guy Ashton Forbes investigating the disappearance of flight MH370, and so perhaps you would say I found a conspiracy tract on X, and I want to believe, and I am gullible. So what I would say is I'm very gullible. I want to believe in cool stuff, and I am open-minded, and I tend to think that it is possible for extraordinary secrets to be kept and extraordinary things to happen. Basically, I'm retarded. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I love sci-fi, right? I'm
Yes.
a big sci-fi fan. I'm making my wife watch all these sci-fi classics from, when I was younger. I'm trying to get her caught up in school, then, on the
Good. I
class.
need to do that too. Give me your list.
Actually, it's in Egora. This is a new
Perfect.
expansion to Egora. My favorite films is in there. My
Unbelievable.
favorite
Hold
podcast.
on. What,
So,
so philosophers' ideas, is it under ideas?
one thing I'd like for us to do throughout this show is to do some screen sharing.
I was going to do that, and I can still do that, but I'm less comfortable with it, because I'm on Zoom now, and I haven't really done Zoom lately, but I can share screen, or do you want to do it?
I can also do it if I have
Yeah.
that. Oh, I have
Can
it's
you?
disabled. So.
Oh shit. I don't know how to enable it for you.
Well, the simplest way I do it in my Zoom meetings, I just make other people co-hosts. It comes with a level of trust. I don't know if you
Oh
trust me
yeah,
that
how do I do that? Just tell me how to do it,
that should be pretty easy. When you click on participants and you click on their
Particip-
name,
Participants, and then more, make host. Perfect.
co-host, make co-host.
Oh, make co-host. Where the hell? Oh, I'm so stupid. Make, it just says make host. Oh, maybe you can just bounce it back to me when you're done. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Floor is yours.
Let's see. All right. So I'm already logged into Egora here, and I suppose now this is making me want to go back a few steps here. So this is let me put it this way. There are three Egoras. There's the main one, municipal one, and the community one. One thing I love about this project is we have been testing it over the years, and we've been having all this community input from people and people contributing ideas for how to improve this platform, and we've been expanding it. We've been including these suggestions from people. It's really been people driven. Originally, it used to be just the main Agora, which is for like national and international level ideas. So this is my ideological profile for, again, like national, international level stuff. I met somebody in Ukraine, actually in Lviv, Ukraine, who was telling me he's not really interested in, in international level stuff. He really just wants to make his city better. And I'm like, well, you could take this platform and ask your city mayor to launch one of these platforms for your city. But then I'm like, yeah, is this guy really going to do that? I'm like, let me see what I can help. So we added this whole function to have a municipal Egora where you establish whatever is your municipality, and then you can create ideas for,
So
just
this is
for your
why I
town.
started our conversation the way I did, which is to say, hey, you saw me coming and said, I've got a solution for you. That's what, let's talk about what Egora is. Every creation is a solution to a problem. I mean, I just pulled that out of my ass, but you've got an engineer's mind. This is a solution to something, right?
Yeah.
And
Ma-
so, it's my understanding of the platform Egora is it's a place where you can share ideas and get ideas measured and just take as objective as a look at you can as ideas and engage based on objective metrics and understand things, come to an understanding of this chaos that we referred to when we opened up, which is why I'm not a Democrat hosting a podcast or I don't know. I'm confused. I'm searching. So is this platform, there are 3 Agoras. What doesn't it do? Can it sell me a new car?
not not yet, and probably never. The idea was that eventually it would be funded through, kind of like Facebook. It would be kind of the substitute for Facebook. For various reasons, it just made sense to kind of keep it political and philosophical and not commercial. You enter into a whole different sphere at that point.
Mm,
So Igora is to enable a large group of people to make decisions together democratically, where everyone has, let's just say, approximately equal power. There will always be some people who are more eloquent speakers. There will always be some people who have greater outreach, like they have a podcast and somebody else does not have a podcast. They're going to have a different level of outreach, but it's not going to be like a million times greater. It might
mm.
be, you might have a little bit more sway, maybe twice as much. Like your voice is worth the voice of like 2 voters or 5 voters, but it's not like 5 million
You're talking
voters.
about closing the information gap as well, and
Power.
the influence gap.
Yeah, the power structure. My goodness. So yeah, there's so much I want to cover with you, and I promise we're going to come back to the aliens. Like, this is
Oh,
why.
yeah, good. No, I've
Uh,
got it written down and circled, so you damn right we're coming back to it.
all right.
Take me any direction you want to go.
So what you ask a really great question. What problem are we trying to solve? And this is coming back to the International Logic Party, the early days of the International Logic Party, when it was just an idea. How do you? So the question is, how do you do democracy? I realized
Mm,
democracy is fundamentally Congress, which means not the Congress in Washington. Congress, as in the idea, as in the activity of people coming together,
mm,
all the shareholders and even some of the stakeholders being able to come together and deliberate on a rather equal footing, and everyone has the opportunity to be heard by everyone else. And so here's the problem with democracy. It doesn't scale very well. Anytime you get into a community, a town, society that's more than, let's just say, like somewhere around 5,000 people, it all starts to fall apart. It Well, let me use as an example. For example, New England. I'm really fascinated by New England, and we took a trip out to Vermont and New Hampshire to try to see if we want to move there, because I'd love to. Because they actually have a really strong culture of deliberative democracy. There are a lot of small towns, and those towns have town meetings
mm-hmm.
where people come together and they all deliberate. A lot of them, they don't even have like an elected mayor, because they all actually make decisions together. And so you can do that when you have a small community. From what I remember, I think it's around 6,000 people. Whenever like a New England town it reaches more than 6,000 people, they start to shift from a town meeting model to a city council and a mayor model.
Mm-hmm.
So
The transition from direct democracy to a representative
something,
system.
something.
System. Right. I said system. Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so what the election of officials is supposed to do? Oh, oh my
Don't
goodness.
worry. We can if we're gonna run against that clock. when we hit it, we will pause and we'll start a new meeting. So no worries. Um, and I will clip this out, so all
Okay.
good.
Okay. So what happens? So the point is, democracy doesn't scale very well because of mathematical geometric reasons. It's really the geometry of it that
Hmm.
breaks down this dynamic.
It's
You
got a
know,
limitation. It's got a geographical, populatory, if that's a word, limitation.
it's kind of like a bucket of water. If you leave it for a million years, it's probably not going to develop life. But if you have an ocean of water, it's for over a billion years, it's gonna different things are gonna happen based on how big it is. And so the question was, how do we have that same dynamic that a group of people can have at a small community level? How can we have that same dynamic, the same types of interactions, the same type of empowerment that people have in small groups in a large group of millions or hundreds of millions, billions of
That
people?
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You know, pause for a second. If we just go to deep into I'm talking to all these libertarians now, and the libertarian, the anarchist will say government is a parasite on the society. And I love what you just said about the water. If we think about a little bucket of water being a pure, flourishing society, maybe, or a successful democracy, interchangeable, maybe words, phrases, and then the life when you put it all into an ocean and life forms, I was thinking, oh, but what if it's like bacteria and parasites and negative influence? So I'm potentially mixing metaphors, but it's interesting. Maybe I've gone too far, but democracy. But I'm fascinated by this point of yours that this group dynamic, the balance of power, the equitable balance of power in small group dynamics, maintaining that over large groups being the problem to solve. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and I don't want to like idealize and fetishize it too much without having had a personal experience living in a small town, because there are a lot of drawbacks to that too. Kind of like everybody knows your business, and if nobody
Mm,
likes you, then you don't have any friends in the whole town. Like there are also issues with that, right? Um, but and like I'm not even interested in local governance issues. Like in my town here, we recently had a ballot initiative to vote on whether we should raise our taxes to pay for the high school getting refurbished or something like that. And that's cool. That's really great that we have this direct democracy type of thing. But
mm,
I don't care. I actually really don't care because I don't even want to live in this town. I don't even want to
mm.
live in the state. I'd rather live somewhere else. I'd rather live in like New England or somewhere, maybe Alaska, maybe Washington. Honestly, I'd like to be not poor enough so that I could actually explore a little bit more. Uh, I mean, I'd like to not be so poor that I could actually explore to find out where my family and I want to live.
Mhm.
But we're kind of trapped here with the situation. So yeah, I don't want to idealize it too much because it has its own drawbacks. But the truth remains that the point is that you can come to a meeting, and if you have an idea for how to do things better in your town, you can present that to basically all the people involved. And or within the course of a year, you could talk to enough neighbors that this is actually brought up for a vote, and your voice really matters. Whereas in this society, like if I have a great idea, like let's get rid of the Federal Reserve, I said, I'm terrible at winking. Sorry, I'm,
Are
I'm
you
trying. Hold
flirting
on,
with
hold
me? That's you're
on.
married, right?
No, I'm trying to win some of those libertarian,
Right,
win favor with the libertarians. I know
right.
you.
But it's a strong issue to evoke. So let's say you wanted to do that.
Yeah, I have no chance. I mean, like if I start talking to all my neighbors, say let's do this thing. By the time that I talk to the 10th person, the other person will have already become distracted, disheartened, and so you don't have that same dynamic. Whereas in a small town, I could invite every weekend. We could host our neighbors. Hey, come over. We have this ballot initiative coming up. This vote is coming up in a few months in our town. Come over, let's have some tea and let's discuss this. Basically, citizens actually start to act like senators, or really citizens act like citizens,
Mm.
um, that they respect one another.
Bringing the power closer to the people.
Yeah, uh, yeah, exactly, right. um, so how do you have that dynamic? And so All right, well, I've been dragging this out long enough. Sorry. The point is the solution is the stock market. Stock market for information and ideas instead of just companies and assets. So we use the stock market technology to scale that dynamic. And but here's the difference. So like for example, and actually I don't know if I should bring up this, but Egora was inspired by the website CoinMarketCap. CoinMarketCap keeps track of the different cryptocurrencies. So like Bitcoin is in first place. It shows you all the different cryptocurrencies. Like Bitcoin is in first place because it has the most backing. It has the most, market share, or what is it? I forgot what the word is. Um, Market capitalization, right? The second one, I don't know if it's still Ethereum or whatever. And so you could use that for ideas instead of calling a currency a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. You could call it higher taxes, or you could call it
Right.
lower taxes. You instead of currency names, they could be policy suggestions, right? The only problem is that to make these ideas rise, you actually have to spend your resources, most of which most people are very limited, you know.
What do you mean by
So,
that? To make these
well,
policies, I
like
do spend
let's
resources.
say I like one of these currencies that's at the bottom, and I
Oh, I
want to
see
bring
what you're
it
saying.
higher,
I see what
and I
you're
want to
saying.
bring it higher so more people can see it, more people can invest into that currency. I have to spend money,
You don't have an real money or currency within the Agora.
No, well, I'm trying to draw the comparison here, but in Coin Market Cap, how things
Ah,
work in Coin Market Cap
gotcha.
versus how they work in Egora. If I want to make it, the point is, in Coin Market Cap, if I want to make a currency slash idea rise,
Mm-hmm.
I have to buy that currency with like US dollars or something. In
Mm-hmm.
Egora, if I
Right.
want to make an idea rise, I buy that currency with the limited amount of space that I have in my profile. So
Gotcha.
it, yeah.
So it's a, you're not asking people to pay US dollars to participate in the system, but you are saying you don't have an unlimited amount of likes, guys. You have a limited amount of resources
Yeah, all
on your
right.
profile.
You can only tweet, or like using
Right.
X as
Yeah.
an
That's
example. You
very
can only
cool. I mean,
tweet so many things.
this is fantastic. And this is why it's so relevant for us to be talking because I'm searching for political identity and you are creating a stock market of ideas, a place where you can measure ideas and to help a person like me.
Well, okay, so this is what enables democracy. Basically, the fundamental question that we're trying to solve is how do you make it possible for everyone to participate in the meeting? Remember, that's like the golden standard, the town meeting, right?
Right.
The, uh, so how do you make it possible for everyone to have the opportunity to speak, to be heard by everyone else? Well, the simple answer is you can't.
Hmm.
So how do you get around that? So instead of having one town meeting for all 200 million people who are old enough to vote or whatever, you have a million meetings, oh, led by different people, led by different community members. And so all of these people have the opportunity to come to the meeting to discuss the different ideas, discuss the different proposals, and then you aggregate all of that
Right.
information in Egora to
Hmm.
see which ideas are rising, which ideas are falling. And then next week we have another round of meetings where more people can attend and talk. I was able to go to this meeting, but I didn't go to that meeting. So
Yeah.
next week I'm going to go to this meeting where I can
It's
talk to.
brilliant. It's awesome because it's the best polling system, but it's so much more than just a polling system. And you know what? I'll wrap up the thought and we'll pause. I'll send you a new link and then we'll come back in. But it's so much more than just a polling system.
Yeah, it
Let's
is.
pick that up on the other side. I was saying it's not just a polling system, but it would be the best polling system out there. But it's an incubator of ideas. It's a meeting room, a million meeting rooms. It's a place to develop your ideas and identity. Hmm.
Yeah. So like you were saying, it's better than a polling system, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's because it's not just that you can participate anytime on any topic that is of interest to you, anywhere. You can still, your voice still matters within this framework. It still counts.
Right.
Um, what's important is that this system actually makes people smarter. And wiser. And stronger, more confident. It really makes us better as citizens. And the reason that it
Mm,
does that is because you're not, again, this is the difference between expressing your opinion versus publishing your philosophy.
mm.
Um, because it's not just you talking kind of out of your ass or, just, uh,
Your
you know,
Egora ass.
saying what comes to mind. It's about you reworking those ideas and developing that philosophy to publish. Uh,
Mm.
Basically, other people can easily critique you. Uh, yeah, it's about refinement. Essentially,
Right. It's an
that's
incubator for your ideas. I mean, where else can you go to put your ideas in a toaster, test them, see which ones stick, which don't, which hold up to scrutiny, which scrutiny you reject, which scrutiny you accept? You're still going to have problems. This is not going to lead to technocracy perfection, which may be the goal of the Logic Party to have the most efficiency. It's not going to lead to that, but it could really help because there's still going to be challenges within and differences of opinion, but it might it might significantly help.
um, sorry, my alarm was going
Yeah,
off.
no worries. Wake up.
For my old work schedule, I used to work on Saturdays. I don't. This is the first Saturday I'm off, so
Oh, amazing.
um, yeah, right. So putting the ideas to the test. So I want to speak to that point because that's actually really important.
Hmm.
The way that you put ideas to the test, there are actually at least a few levels. But the first level that you put ideas to the test is, first of all, will you support it? Like, is this idea? It's like, yeah, you might agree with it. You
Right.
might think like, oh, that's interesting, and you know what, I'd like to try that. But you might not like the way that it's expressed, or you might not. You might agree with half of it, but then you question the other parts. So first of all, will you support the idea? Then the next level is this idea good enough to actually share it with other people? So like when you registered for Egora, I actually shared some ideas with you. And so I'm submitting these ideas to you for peer review. And then you're going to decide whether these ideas are good enough to become a part of your philosophy. And in
Hmm.
any case, like if you support these ideas, that's a way that that's
I've begun the process of
yeah.
that multi-tiered process. It has started.
Yeah. Right, right. But if you don't agree with an idea, then we're going to have a discussion. Hopefully, we're going to have a discussion about that idea. And it's like examining a bill. It's like really looking at a proposed bill. And do you agree with this clause? Or
Hmm.
if you don't agree with this, why do you not agree with this clause?
Hmm.
Why do you think this is problematic? How do you think we can solve that problem, and then move on to the next clause and move on to the next clause, really looking at it the way that's, elected officials look at bills, look at, again, outsourcing the government to the people. It's, we're doing
Mm.
what the actual
Right.
politicians are doing.
Yeah, and some of it is finding principle. Here's an interesting point. What's the difference between finding the principles that you believe in and finding the policies that you believe in? Where does principle become policy? Because I've said to people, "Oh, if I just found my principles, I wouldn't." Well, they would say, "Then you wouldn't need to. Why do you need a political identity? Just find your principles." Well, yeah, if I found the principles I believed in, it would lead to a political identity. So it's kind of an interesting thought.
So yeah, man, there's so much really, Igora is a world in itself.
Right.
Like, well, actually,
Right.
when you come to explore it, you realize it's huge, it's massive, it takes a lifetime really yeah, it's a lifelong thing, and I love it. I mean, this is, for me, this is
Yeah,
it,
it's a prism, and I say prism, not prison.
yeah.
Figuring out what you believe. I mean, correct me if I sound off base, if I'm not sounding right, but figuring out what you believe has multi dimensions and it's multifaceted, and therefore a system to help you understand and guide you through that process is going to have to also be multifaceted.
But okay, so coming back to your point about your ideas, and your principles, you use the word principles. I would like to substitute that for the word values. So
Mm,
ideas, what I love about this is that by externalizing these ideas and putting them on paper,
hmm.
instead of, it's actually a psychological shift that makes people more open-minded. When you take your ideas and put them up on a wall as a proposal, you feel like you have to defend it psychologically less because it's already out there, you
Right.
know.
That makes
And
so
then you
much sense.
become
That's really
more
interesting.
you become more objective in
It's
your
not part of
analysis.
you anymore.
Exactly. It's not a part of you anymore. Like, it's not, you don't have to put your whole ego on supporting this idea.
This is very interesting. And perhaps the psychological point of your whole project, which is when you externalize your idea. Hey, Brian Escal, you don't know what to believe. You want to learn, but you can't figure it out. You've hosted how many episodes now? You're making no progress. How about you write it out? This system is very interesting.
Basically, ideas become tools. And the thing that you can do with a tool is when it's not getting the job done, you can put down the tool and
Hmm.
pick up a different tool. And you're
Hmm.
not judged by it. I was like, oh, hey, you put down that tool. I thought you were that
And
tool user.
and
You were the hammer
that
user.
tool is no longer part of your identity, tying it into my theme again, right? So you can,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
bro, if your relationship with your dad and his relationship to politics and his relationship with his dad and his brothers, it's all jumbled and you have a bit of a psychological element attachment to your identity and your how you view politics. Hey, and maybe maybe my dad should get on it. And all of a sudden we're like healing our trauma because we're detaching, we're separating our ideas about politics from ourselves. It's very deep, dude.
So this is actually, speaking of using Egora with other people on a personal level, like with intimate. This is actually how my wife and I kind of met, so to speak. We met in the citizen assembly meetings that I organized, but then we started talking more about specific ideas, and then I remember we spent quite a bit of time using the. So there are different communities in Egora, and one of the communities is my personal values. It's a list of your values. Because what I realize is that ideas are like the tools, but your values are actually much more intimate. They're actually much more, and I think this is what I meant to substitute values for
Mhm.
principles. I think the better word here is values. So, like, for example, capitalism is not a value. Communism is not a value. They're systems and they're kind of ideologies to help you accomplish your values,
Mhm.
to help you realize your values. So the question is, what are your values? Like, I think this is my analysis, at least for me, being a communist in the past. The reason, like, I was persuaded by communism because of my sense of community. Like, I valued community, and I feel like we should be working together,
Mhm.
instead of trying to undermine each other and you know this individual. Like, yeah, we could. Yeah, it's basically
Collectivism,
community.
a value of collectivism versus here comes libertarians, the value of individualism. It's individualism versus collectivism. There's a value
Well,
split there, maybe.
I would say the actual, and again, this is just how I identify it. I call it community, but I also have the value of freedom. And so, you can look at
Mm.
my list of values to see. I don't even remember. I think freedom is actually higher on my list than the community, but both of them are on my list. And actually, so one of the purposes of this community, by adding this community to the system, everyone, when they register for Egora, everyone is by default, a member of that community. The point of that was to show that we all actually have the same values. We just
Exactly.
kind of prioritize them differently.
And now we're in the weeds in a really good way of this process of discovery about yourself, your own beliefs and others' beliefs. And is there more common ground than we realize? And there probably is. The libertarians, even the anarchists, they believe in community. I mean, they believe in a natural community. Uh, well, maybe a hardcore anarchist, maybe you could say they don't believe in community, but I would say I would suggest and posit that even they would say no, we believe in community, just organically arising, a community that arises in a certain organic way. So, what is the difference, guys? You can get exact about this stuff and refine and learn. It's just phenomenal.
I kind of want to joke here. I don't
Go.
worry about what anarchists think because they can't organize. So what are they going to do?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's good. It's good.
uh,
It's really good.
no, but not to speak poorly of anyone, but actually, I do kind of want to make a comment. Having watched a lot of your interviews with libertarians, it just really got me thinking. Now, I'm not from Scandinavia, and I haven't done a lot of research. I did look at, like, do a quick Google search on it. From my understanding, I could be mistaken, libertarians don't really exist much in Scandinavia. In
Mm,
places where the government actually does a good job, like the ideology of like
mhm,
eliminating the government just doesn't take root because it's,
mm.
you know, so yeah,
That's interesting.
I definitely do think we need a government. Um, uh, of course, the question is, I do think that the government should be as small as possible. The purpose of the government is to um, do collectively what we cannot do better through free enterprise.
Yeah,
Now,
I
this
did
is
read. I did read one of your. I did actually no. I read several. Of the ideas. Sorry to have cut you off, but one of the ideas. I forget what it was about particularly, but the big picture idea was you were giving all respect due to the market. Libertarians, are you listening? All respect due to the market, but also saying, yeah, no. Bottom line, there's a role for the government, and it is to basically do for whatever reason we don't do, the market doesn't do. The point is the market's not perfect. It's great, but it's not perfect. It should be supplemented by this thing called government to do something because for some reason that thing doesn't happen without it.
I like, and maybe my metaphors aren't always great. Usually, metaphors are kind of fall short in one way or another. But for a long time, I've been thinking like the market is like a fire, but the fire works much better when you build a furnace for it, and then you're able to channel that energy, through
Mm,
central heat and get that heating because the fire actually is very hot, like really close to it. But if you try to fit your whole tribe around the fire, some people are going to be very hot right at the front. A few people will be in the
mm.
perfect zone, and everybody else will be kind of cold. I mean, yeah, they can
That's
start
really
their own
interesting.
fires.
That's
They can
really
start their
interesting.
own fires,
Right.
but it's actually easier to have one big fire because then you need.
It's a brilliant metaphor. It's a brilliant metaphor. One that I'm going to use moving forward. But that's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So the government is like the furnace, but the thing is, you don't want to spend too much resources on it because sometimes it makes sense to have a separate fire over here, and
Yeah, well,
and
they would say the more you do and the more services you provide and you hire people to clean the chimney and you do all these, and next thing you know, the fire ain't burning that hot and you're actually having a net. So let's be sure to be clear with our audience that we are clearly into the personal belief side of the conversation, which is fine. But keeping in mind that Egora is a place where all ideas, I mean, no one's ideas are going to be censored, right? So all ideas can be mushed around with. And yes, there will be differences of opinion. Like I said, at the end of the day, there will come a time and a place where these ideas, the best, if these positions will all be sifted through and refined, eventually the strongest will remain, and there will have to be a clash of those positions, an intellectual battle that will remain. And so people will take one side of the equation about the fires, and other people take another.
okay, my goodness. So, again, so many things I want to say, but the one really interesting thing, and again, kind of speaking to our libertarian audience. Um, so my point is, we need a government. I do think it should be as small as possible. It's a big question mark. What is the smallest possible? What are the things that the government can do better? That cannot be done better through free enterprise. We have to be very careful in identifying those things. But they are definitely there. It's definitely at least one thing, right? And so is it one? Is it 10? Is it 100? This is where a big discussion has to be had.
Yes.
Uh, I'm of the persuasion that it's at least one thing. And then,
Hmm.
so kind of tie in with another point. And so I heard some libertarians or some anarchists, I forgot, they say the critique is that the government is like a gang. It's in, or like it's the
Coercive.
mob.
Taxation is theft, and everything that they do, it's all coercion. It's based on coercion, right?
Uh, well, yeah, the whole monopoly of force,
Hmm.
people say the government is a gang. And actually, I've learned a lot by trying to take someone's critique, and because I often like dismiss it, like because I'm like it's coming out of nowhere. I'm like, what? That's just crazy. But I'm like, what if I spend a few minutes actually saying, okay, let's really consider this. Let's really put that to the test. And I've actually learned a lot by taking the claim that taxation is theft that way. It's really
It's a
gotten me,
great tool.
yeah, to very rigorously examine that claim. What is
Hmm.
the strongest counterclaim that I can really make to that claim? So
Hmm.
I took this whole claim that the government is a gang, or that it's some kind of like a criminal
The
force,
regime,
and
yes.
I'm like, well, okay, the government is a gang. So let's look at it that way.
Hmm.
But you know what? But I like my gang better than the other gang. The point is that nations are fundamentally corporations. That's the ultimate goal. A lot of people think like, hey, let's just do everything through freedom. But if you really look at it, nation states are essentially businesses that are competing against one another. So if you want the
Mm.
free markets to settle things, yes, the free market is settling things. That's why the corporation of the United States of America is thriving. Well, there are a lot of other reasons, but it's a great geopolitical, strategic location. The United
Hmm.
States, the land is amazing. Like, this country
Right.
was literally blessed with waterways, with resources. It's incredible. No other country in the world has this kind of an advantage to the
Mm.
United States. But so it's got a lot going for it. But the ideas are great. But anyways, the point is that, like, the nation of Finland is competing in the market. Ultimately, I do think that countries should actually compete for market share in land. Like, if there are a lot of migrants, let's say we have a lot of migrants coming from Guatemala. So what if, okay, let's say the people, the corporation of Guatemala is doing a terrible job and the people are migrating to the United States. Well, what if we let these people trade in their passports for US passports? And then we take the people from Guatemala, but we also take a proportion of Guatemala for the United States. Make that
Oh,
another.
wow.
So, I mean, like, you could
Bold,
look at it
sir.
that way. I mean, if you take the idea that corporations are actually competing for market share, that would be the next logical step, right?
Hmm.
So I do think that United States, fundamentally, we are corporations. Yeah, so it's a mob. The point is yeah, nations have a monopoly on force just like gangs do. But I'd rather be a part of a gang that
Mm.
guarantees me free speech than a gang that does not, than like Russia that
It's
does
so
not.
interesting. I mean, that's why the claim from these guys, it's strong. It's strong to say, hey, dude, you don't need anyone. Protection services, court systems, that too can be privatized. And maybe that's the one thing, but it's a whole thing about trying to figure out what your political philosophy is, what role the government is, what should it be? It's a huge question. It's a freaking
Okay.
huge question.
I feel like kind of this is kind of one of my ideas within Egora. So I feel I kind of traveled down the path of ideology a little bit further than I wanted to than to speak about the system. I just really wanted to entertain the idea of, like, radical analysis. Really,
Yeah.
like, exploring these critiques and actually making your own point stronger by
Yeah,
testing.
and that's what, my little podcast has in common with your Egora, in vastly different ways. But so I'm this is a micro channel. I could plug into Egora and really amplify this effort. But yeah, talking to diverse thought leaders, trying to synthesize information, gather, synthesize, spit it out, refine. And Egora is a more formal, but it's not formal. If that's the right word, it's a
Well,
world. It's a world. It's a
yeah.
world that can amplify that process.
Okay, but let me get back to the kind of the main core points that I should try to communicate in this show. So, again, the original idea was the International Logic Party. So how does and the International Logic Party has a few very simple principles. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's basically open-mindedness. That's essentially the big thing, like radical open-mindedness. That's
Hmm.
kind of what it establishes, and an open system.
That's interesting.
Um, so we
That's
are
cool.
ultimately a political party. Our goal is to win offices and to realize the top ideas, whatever the people have decided, to actually implement that through our government channels, which
Hmm.
are elections. And so
Hmm.
there's another part to the algorithm. Okay, so you have your own ideological profile, I have my profile, other people have their profiles. The different ideas that we support, they get aggregated to show which ideas have the most support from the people. We can do something else that's really interesting from that. Again, in the direction of being a political party, we have to nominate political candidates, right? Somebody ultimately has to champion those ideas in
Hmm.
government positions. So with this algorithm, we're able to cross-reference. Like, let's say you wanted to announce yourself as a political candidate. Let's say you wanted to run for this California
No,
general.
straight to the presidency.
You can do that, right? So you can announce yourself as a candidate, and the Egora algorithm is going to look at your profile. It's going to see which ideas you support, how much support those ideas have from the people, and it gives you a score as a candidate. It gives you a candidate score, and then it compares your score to other people who are also trying to get elected for that position, and it then creates a list of candidates who most closely represent the will of the people.
So valuable. I mean, seriously, that's amazing. You could how imagine being able to say in a presidential race, yeah, this data from this campaign, that from that one, but look at this data from Egora, the algorithm of which is designed to tell you the truth about the relationship between popular positions and candidates. And so that's fantastic.
Well, because and so here we are solving a really big problem in politics, which is the influence of money.
Yeah.
Essentially, winning an election is a popularity contest,
Right.
and currently there are kind of two main ways to win the popularity contest. Number one is you are already popular. Like, for example, what was that? The cowboy president, Reagan, right?
Okay, Reagan.
It was a movie star, or Kanye West, right? So this is already a
Right.
guy who was popular. A lot of
Even
people.
Donald Trump. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I was going to bring up him
yeah,
because he kind of covers both. He has both money
yeah,
and he has popularity. You
yeah.
know, I was just trying to use the ones that were more just popular rather than
Right.
rich.
Mm.
But so they already have popularity, and so kind of people take them seriously because they know that other people know about them, and people feel like they kind of know them because they've seen them in the movies.
Hmm.
Honestly, they probably don't know that much about them really, but
Right. But the
but
value of not
recognition.
having exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So those people can quite easily run for, a high profile office. The other way to win that popularity is through money. You just have a lot of money and you can put up billboards, you can put up
Hmm.
posters, run ads, hey, vote for this person instead of Kanye West, instead of Ronald Reagan,
Yeah, it
right?
didn't work for Bloomberg, but yes. Point
Well,
point
but,
point
no,
stands. Point stands. Point stands.
but the point, he can compete, right?
Right.
He's in a
Right. Right.
competitive
Right.
situation, right?
Yes, sir.
So we are offering another way to skyline candidates. Essentially, that's what these people are. Is they're skyline. They're against everyone else, right? The other way that we can skyline candidates is with math, with an algorithm, instead of so basically substituting money for math. And so the question is, who is the best candidate to represent this collection of people? Well, let's see what the algorithm says. Let's compare their ideas to how their ideas
Right.
compare to people's ideas, and we can skyline candidates. There's another level of approval because the party members still have to vote whether they actually trust that person to be competent and trust and have enough integrity to carry out those
Mm-hmm.
ideas. So there has to be another level, and so
Hmm.
we have a mechanism for that too.
Mm.
But the big thing is,
Wow.
how do you skyline? How do you get, like, Brian, you are the best person to be president of the United States of America. How do
I
we
know.
tell everyone that they should vote for you come November instead of these other people, right? That's the problem we're solving, because Brian is at the top of this list, the top of this list that
You're
represents
making, and it's
you.
your meritocracy. It's a meritocracy too, so to speak. It's on the rankings are based on the merit of, well, several things. The positions, do I hold all the popular positions? Am I a person of integrity? Whatever the dimensions are, but the point is through those dimensions, that algorithm, I get there. It's kind of earned. It's not false.
Well, speaking to that point, how do you know you can trust people? And this is
Mm,
where, again, keep in mind that the purpose. This is where we get to the core concept of including everyone in that town meeting. So so the way that you get to know whether you trust people is because you've seen them over time.
right.
Because they've come to the meetings, they've analyzed ideas with you.
Hmm.
They've spent the time to learn with you. They've taught you things. You've learned
Hmm.
things from them. So it's participation. It's about participation. That's how you develop, this trust with the community, is because you participated in the democratic process with the
And that could
community.
be measured too.
Well, it's measured by to how many meetings you attend. So
Right.
so you
Right.
know, okay. So we're kind of moving on to the whole citizen assembly concept. So all right. So we started with the idea of the International Logic Party. Egora came as a solution to enable the International Logic Party to do democracy, right? To include everyone in the decision making, to include everyone in the meeting. The
Mhm.
ideological profile, by looking at people's ideological profiles, you can you can compare their ideas. It's like, hey, Brian supports this idea for lower taxes, but Brian also supports this idea for more public spending. What the hell is up with that, Brian? That doesn't make any sense. How are you going to pay for that?
Mhm.
So you can easily critique people. And just another comment on that, what I think is interesting, it's basically what the ideological profile is, basically what candidates are doing when they're running for office, but
Mhm.
we're engaging every citizen. So it's like your
Mm.
campaign platform as a citizen
Right.
without you actually running a campaign
Yeah.
for office,
Yes,
right?
that's good.
So it's not that foreign of a concept. We're just trying to include more people in that process.
That's that's great. This is a power. You're just go on, but you're describing a powerful tool for empowerment.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, but so then, so I used to organize international logic party meetings here in Chicago. I'm based out of the Chicago area. I actually traveled to Europe, looking for a programmer, trying to build this website. I'm not rich, by the way. I'm not a billionaire.
Get out of here.
Politics is a plaything of the wealthy. Nazdrovia.
Thank you.
Uh, Politics tends to be a plaything of the wealthy, but here I am, a
Mm.
pauper, trying to challenge the system. So I had to try to find a programmer who's gonna. Let's say I didn't have a lot of resources, and I had to get this thing built. So how do I do that? So I was traveling in Poland and Ukraine. Our first programmer was from Germany. So this journey took me, even to Berlin, which was an amazing trip. And I spent some time. I was organizing international logic party meetings in Poland and in Ukraine, and that's the amazing thing, just meeting with people from different countries, different perspectives,
Right.
and seeing how we're all in this together. We're really like,
Mm.
from this experience. And then we did things online because of COVID, and we had people joining from Africa, we had people joining from India,
Mm.
just really around the world.
Wow.
Europe, obviously, Canada, even South America, a few. um but yeah, the big thing that you see is like all of these people, like if they didn't tell you from which country they are, you
Wouldn't know.
wouldn't be able to know that they're not from your country, because they have the
That's
same problems.
that's so
It's the
interesting.
same
Yeah.
problem everywhere,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but okay, I was organizing international logic party meetings. The problem that I kind of encountered is that a lot of people were like, "What the hell is the international logic party, and what do you do at the meetings?" Right? So, as I was
Mm.
traveling in Europe, I don't know if you heard of Extinction Rebellion. The democracy, not democracy, the climate change kind of. They do a lot of that obstruction, blocking
Right.
roadways now.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
But one thing that they're advocating is a citizens assembly process, where you had a guest on your show talking about something like this, kind of like a randomly selected chamber or something.
Yes, and I saw one of the ideas on Igor was the lotocracy,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yes, they're very similar to one of my guests. Yes, E.H. Ivins. What does he go by? Herb. He goes by Herb K now. And yes, one of the core ideas of his vision called anti-politism is a randomly selected body, Congress to be randomly selected.
But so that idea, that concept was more familiar to people in Europe. So I'm like, what if we do like an extension of this, because I was also organizing Egora Society, which is for people who didn't necessarily want to identify themselves, basically to create a community for other people using Egora who are not declared members of the International Logic Party, because you don't have to be a member of the International Logic Party to use Egora.
Right.
Anyone can use it. Anyone can contribute ideas. But basically, International Logic Party are the citizens of Egora. Everyone else is like a resident. They still get to participate in a lot of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's but the International Logic Party ultimately governs Egora. That's who ultimately controls it.
Hmm.
So okay, so citizen assembly became like an extension, kind of to make a community. But even beyond that, even people who are not registered, for people who can come to the meetings. And so that's kind of like, you could say it's like the town meeting. The point was, so I've done a lot of these. I've done hundreds of them online, probably 500 meetings with thousands of people. It's been a lot of these events have been actually documented. We streamed them onto YouTube and Facebook, so there is a repertoire of people discussing these ideas. One thing I really love, so in Igora there's a comment section under each idea, and I originally didn't like that idea. Originally, the ideas were just there. There wasn't a comment section. I always thought that the ideas should be discussed in real time,
Hmm.
not online.
Right.
But but people wanted a comment section. I'm like, okay, so let's develop that. And then I found that the comment section is a really great place to like link past events of people discussing those ideas in real time. So you can still participate in that discussion. You might not get to speak at that event, but you
Hmm.
still get the benefit of hearing what different people had to say. And
Mm.
you can still essentially vote on whatever the proposals that were raised. So the big thing is that this whole process, this is how we are able to tell whether we can trust a candidate, because they've actually shown up. They've deliberated
Right.
these things with us. That's the
Right.
final check for
Hmm.
knowing whether you can trust
You
someone.
can see it. You could show the work. You could see the work.
Well, they know you. Those people know you. It's just like,
Right.
hey, they've done the work
You're
with you.
not some
They
dis.
were
You're
side
not.
by side
You're
digging the ditches.
yes, yes. You're not some candidate being dropped in to our lives, parachuted in by some
Yeah,
two-party
money,
system.
money, by money,
Right.
really,
Yes,
by the
yes, yes.
oligarchy.
Yes, from some top of some skyscraper. This is a side by side. Hey, bro, it's gonna be. It looks like it's gonna be you, sir or ma'am. You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing. What have you
So
learned, or do you want to get in the few remaining minutes that we have left? Do you want to get some more? Do you want to tell me anything more, or do you want to tell
yeah,
me
yeah.
what you've learned? Go ahead.
So here's the thing. I have to admit, we don't actually have candidates. We're a political party currently without any candidates, because that's what we ultimately need to really, for the wheels to hit the road, for the rubber to hit the road, so to speak. And
Mm.
so somebody who's willing to champion these ideas, and
Mm.
and
I'll
yeah,
consider. I'll consider it. Listen, I'll consider
hey,
it.
you know what? This
You
what we
don't even
need.
have to ask. I'll consider it.
No, no, seriously, but what we need is a champion, right?
Yeah.
And that champion can come in two forms. It can be a candidate. That's the most real way. Essentially, they are the ultimate content creator and the ultimate
Hmm.
focal point of all of this.
Right. Right.
Because whenever you have a candidate, they're saying like, okay, I will champion your ideas.
Right.
You're gonna have people who are like, oh wait, what about me? I have this idea. Will you also champion my idea? People can look up to that person, but they can also expect things from that person. And then you start really kindling that fire. Because otherwise it's a phenomenal intellectual exercise. It's amazing. It really is. But I find that not a lot of people are super highly driven by that. Like there are
Hmm.
some who just enjoy it for the philosophy's sake,
Right.
just for the self improvement perspective. But you kind of need that person from whom you can start to demand things. You're like, hey, if you don't support this idea, I'm going to support the other candidate who does support that
Right.
idea.
Someone who is willing to commit themselves to the ideas and be that and be to be a champion. Yeah. To
Yeah,
not of the
to
ideas, not of themselves and for themselves.
Well,
Yeah.
to ultimately to
Mm.
represent the party, because if we even get them elected, and if they don't prove themselves, well, guess what? We have a system for replacing them.
Right.
Now we actually have proven ourselves that, hey, this is a value, and now we're going to have other people who are going to be
So you need
announcing themselves.
a great spokesperson, a great communicator, a great salesman, a great representative. Makes
Uh,
sense.
Someone to engage the community, and the next best thing is actually a YouTuber. It's a because
Hmm.
essentially you are kind of like a political candidate, because you're kind of the go-to person, you're kind of the focal point. The only difference is you're not running for office, but in many ways you're like a political candidate, or at least from our perspective, from what would
Mm.
bring value to us, you know.
Ah.
So
No, I
so
mean, there's an interesting relationship between what I'm doing and what you've got going. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, where this process leads for me, who knows? But yes, a person doing what I'm doing, um, yeah, would have a lot of interest in your system and have a lot of thoughts about, how they could operate successfully within it. It seems like it's right there. Yeah, I could strap into this and go. A lot of potentials there. So very
so
interesting.
the beautiful part is, we as an organization, we're never going to tell you what to think. You know, it's
Mm,
up to you. I mean, as individuals we will,
right,
definitely as individuals, that's what we do. That's a lot of what we do, is try to educate one another. But as an organization, you're always welcome as a part of the organization. It doesn't matter what you think, as long as you actually think, you know. and
right,
and especially great when you're engaging others and thinking for
right.
themselves too.
To because you're always people are going to have different disagreements, but if you can agree, what you'd have to agree on is, hey, this system, this process, this Egora thing is a good unto itself. And so if we just engage it, all we got to do is engage it. Where the hell were
Yeah.
we?
Okay. Trying to wrap up, because it's been a while. I'm
Well,
hoping.
first of all, how do you feel about this conversation? I feel really good about it. What do you think?
I feel like I wish I could have been a little bit more. We've been through.
Where do you think you would have liked to have been more linear about
Uh,
the system?
yeah, maybe, but you know
Because
what?
I think it's there. I think it's there. I think there's a lot of great content about the system in this conversation. I'm just curious what else you would say about it so far.
Let me just make sure I touch on all the essential points, and
Yeah,
and then I guess, as long as people watch it, and as long as people enjoy it, and ultimately as long as people try it, then
right.
that's all that
I
matters.
think it's been a good one. Go ahead. Please add tell me anything so far that we haven't touched upon that I need to know.
Yeah. So okay, so I would love to build. My goal is to build the International Logic Party, including finding candidates. But for people who don't want that kind of commitment, I want people to try Agora, try developing their own philosophy, sharing their ideas with other people, hearing people's feedback, working with other people to improve their ideas. But even if that's too much for some people, so we're also using Meetup. Actually, I really love the Meetup platform, because I find that it's the one out of all the different, you could say, social media platforms, it's the one that is most empowering to the people, because it's about bringing people together outside of the platform, where the platform doesn't really control what you say. Like Meetup is about bringing people in real life, where people can have conversations that would otherwise get filtered on Facebook or Twitter, or X. So yeah, because you have community standards, right? I mean, you have community standards at Meetup events also, but people can have their own private conversations. Anyways, I love Meetup, right? So we have a Citizen Assembly Coalition for Real Democracy Meetup group that's actually centered around Washington, D.C. The idea is that we can have more of these if we have more people. But I use this group as a way to reach out to the Meetup community, and the different events that I do are also promoted in many other philosophy groups. So we do have an outreach to like tens of thousands of people, but I mean it's slowly going. The big thing about the Citizen Assembly Meetup group, it's a place to organize and promote citizen assembly meetings, which is like a town meeting, but for citizens from all around to come together to deliberate ideas, ultimately to use some kind of an aggregating mechanism. I, of course, advocate using Egora, but if people want to use change.org, essentially change.org is like a really lousy version of Egora. Egora just does so much more. But if that's what people want to use, if you want to organize a citizen assembly and bring other people together and talk about like your petition on change.org, that is awesome. It's a lot better than you just sharing it with your friends. Like, let's bring the people together,
Right.
and hey, maybe we'll find a champion who's gonna, replace the duopoly, right?
Right.
By bringing people together, you give them a platform from which they can challenge the duopoly. But there is another thing that I do, because this was the point I wanted to make. I've organized hundreds of citizen assembly meetings to bring people to deliberate, the different ideas in Egora. And you can watch those. Honestly, they are fantastic events. They're not very entertaining, but they're really empowering.
Mm.
But I found that the problem was that a lot of the people would come to these events and they would just want to vent. They would just want to talk. They would just want to complain. And maybe only 10% of the people would actually register for Egora. And even fewer of those would ever try to develop their philosophy and share it with other people. So that became really tedious because I'm like, I'm doing all this work to build this, to give people a platform to speak out and to hear each other and to work together, and like nobody's really doing the work. So I'm like,
Well, it's
what?
work. That's Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Keep going. But
exactly, it's
it's
work.
work.
that
Hard to get people
that's
to
the big
work.
thing.
To get people to work, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it's democracy is work, and people expect for
Right.
it to be simple, or people expect it to be easy and just, hey, just do it every November, every couple of years, and my job is done here.
Right. Right. Right.
It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Very interesting.
So so what I've been doing, I didn't find it gratifying enough, and I really love exploring ideas in depth. And this is the beauty of it. Like, I've had people come to my, so what I do is citizen office hours instead. The idea is that as citizens, we can have just our own space, just for one other person, to have a sincere, serious discussion about this idea and maybe another idea that's related to it, and we can actually make a decision that's measured and it's impactful somewhere, and that place is Egora ultimately. So it's just, to me, it's a lot more fun having a one-on-one with another person in Egora than, having talking to a group of people where they're all just complaining, venting, and nothing gets done at the end of it. So I do my citizen office hours. I invite everyone. Actually, I would love it if, in this video, that you post a link to my ideological profile. If people want to learn
Sure.
more about my philosophy, please go check out my ideological profile. But then also come to my citizen office hours and let's discuss it. I'm not just trying to throw ideas to you. I want to hear that feedback. Let's have real discussion, right?
It's a process. Let's do it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, we need other people who will do that. We need
Right.
other responsible citizens who will be like, "You know what? I'm gonna be there for you, for everybody. I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm
It's
gonna
so
take
interesting.
responsibility."
It's
Sorry?
so it's so interesting because if the problem we have in our society with all the division, assuming we can agree that we are very polarized, is a lack of engagement. If and so it's a
Probably.
if part of our reason for our polarization is our lack of engagement, our laziness, this is a solution, but it requires somewhat of a revolution in our own selves.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I do think I'm in favor of this. Is kind of ideological, you could say, but I'm in favor of 4-day work week. As a parent, as a
Yeah,
husband,
sure,
as an employee trying to make a living. I just find that, and I'm very dedicated to this, so I make time for this. I make energy. This is my form of entertainment.
right.
How are other people who don't prioritize this as much? How are they supposed
Mm,
to participate in
really
something
good
like this?
question. Yeah, really good
Especially
question.
when their job is taking so much time. So I think we need a 4-day work week, and to kind of have like a 3-day weekend where one day is, just for you, like for yourself. One day is for your family, and another day is for your community.
That's
Like,
amazing. It's so good. It's such a great point. I don't know if you've seen any of the posts I've done, but I've said a few times it's hard to be an informed citizen. And we can't necessarily expect people who are slaving away, even if that's a charged word, which maybe I shouldn't have used, but I'm just saying colloquially, cannot speak. If people are slaving away, it's hard to expect them to not want to do something else and turn on Fox News and listen to someone give them easily digestible, colorful talking points. Can't blame them. It's hard to blame
Yeah, most people can't afford to engage. That's the sad
them.
truth. Um, I want to get ideological with it to talk about things like the
Let,
basic income,
nope, let's save it.
but I'm not talking about it, right?
Yeah,
I'm
right. But
terrible.
it's a good tease. It's a good tease.
Yeah. So, okay. So, what I wanted to say. So, yeah, I have my citizen office hours, and I'm also trying to encourage and challenge other, people to take that responsibility upon themselves to have their own citizen office hours. And let's build a community of responsible citizens. And ultimately, what we need is like one celebrity. Like imagine Tom Hanks starts having his own citizen office hours, and
Right.
everybody's going to be like, I want to talk to Tom
Yeah.
Hanks.
Right.
It's like where Tom Hanks talks one-on-one with this citizen about this policy, right? And then next week or next month, maybe he only does it on a monthly basis. I do it on a weekly basis for
Yeah.
2 hours a week, right? But then other people would be like, well, wait a minute, I might not be able to meet with Tom Hanks, but maybe I can meet with the person who's meeting with Tom Hanks.
You need a monster celebrity to open the floodgates.
Well, but
Maybe.
until
I
we
don't
get
want to
the
say what
monster,
you need, but I'm saying, it would be cool if you had a monster celebrity who opened the floodgates.
yeah, well, right, but this is where we're kind of dependent on the oligarchy to defeat the oligarchy, right? But hey, you know what?
Mm.
Maybe we can get Brian Escow to start having, and then when he
He
goes on to Joe
is he
Rogan,
is potentially available. I'm not gonna lie to you.
yeah, no, but then when he goes on the Joe Rogan Experience, he can get Joe Rogan.
Yes, yes. Can you believe people believe that? I feel bad.
I
Don't tell
did
me
until
you
I
don't.
read the next sentence. I
Yeah.
actually no, dude, because your show is so
Oh.
good. Your show
Oh,
is really so
I
good.
love that. Keep
Yeah,
talking.
I, I,
I got more time. Keep going.
no, I totally believed it
Thank you,
until you
bro.
said it's the number 3 podcast in America. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not real. Yeah.
Okay, good. At least I gave a clue.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
funny. That's funny.
Um,
I'm so grateful that we had this conversation. Anything else for part one? This is definitely part one.
yeah. So, okay. Uh, at the very least, this is, I want to ask you this on air so that
Go
your
ahead.
community, your viewers
Hmm.
can hold you to it. They can hold you accountable.
Go
What
ahead.
I would suggest, first of all, you have an ideological profile in Egora now, since you're registered. You can share it publicly. From what I've seen, is it's blank, so you don't have any ideas in there.
Right.
Start building it. Start sharing it with with your audience, and then hey, maybe some of them are going to be like, hey, I like Brian's idea. I want to support that idea too. Oh, wait a minute. I have an idea for Brian. I want to share that with Brian. So you can do that through Egora, right? They can lobby you. Your listeners can lobby you, and you can
Right.
lobby them to support
Mm.
these ideas until we get someone more important.
Just
I'm
like Bitcoin.
just
No, no,
messing
no,
with
no, 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 no. It's so funny. And that's is totally, of course, obviously. And hey, maybe I'll make it a goal to bring one person to Egora besides myself. That'd be great. But replacing money with math is so interesting. And the Bitcoin or the Coinbase, whatever the thing website of comparison, Coin Market, whatever it was, the idea that we can, with an algorithm, with finite computer codes, whatever, just have an equal voice is so interesting.
you. Okay, so again, I'm trying to wrap up. So with at the very least, I would love it for you to have your own citizen office hours. Let's say you're too busy, or you know what? Here's the thing. Honestly, I've been thinking that like, what if a celebrity does have their own citizen office hours? It's someone that so many people idealize. But what if this person actually gets off their pedestal on the ground floor with the ordinary citizen and they start talking? And what if the ordinary citizens realize, wait a minute, this person
Yeah.
isn't that smart.
Right. It would
This
have to be
person's not
someone
great.
who could perform. They
No,
would have
no.
to have. Couldn't be
What
Paris Hilton. No disrespect.
Well,
Or maybe
no,
it could be.
not necessarily. What I'm saying is, it could potentially come at a cost to a celebrity to be seen as an ordinary
Right.
person, as
Yeah,
opposed
that's a
to
huge what a risk.
idol. Right.
What a risk.
It is. It is. I think
Right.
for some people who are already
So
rich enough.
it's a particular type of celebrity that would have to be required. Someone who's comfortable, confident, all of that,
But,
competent.
but even then, so many people are so quick to misjudge and like to devalue you. You could be a brilliant person, but if somebody disagrees with you, then
Yeah, to put
so
yourself
people
like
are
all these celebrities,
dismissive.
like we work hard. Us podcasters, we're doing the toilet bowl tournament, so to speak. We go on this podcast, and I'm I do not mean any disrespect to anyone who I have on and where I guessed, but we talk to the most random people, and that's why we get joked about, right? Because the podcast, but the hope is to elevate yourself into that smaller circle of famous people, right? On some level, at least, that's the goal. And why would someone who's already there go all the way down here with the common person? You'd have to be really virtuous
Yeah,
or
yeah,
crazy.
but so the thing is that even if you don't have your own citizen office hours, I've been thinking your show is so great, and I love that you're doing an intro to it because I think it helps people like transition.
Yeah.
It is becoming more. It has segments, because otherwise it's kind of like just watching a call, right? But now you have
Yes.
segments. It's
Yeah.
becoming more like a real show. I'm thinking, what if at the end you have a little advertisement? Just again, back
Oh,
to the one
I
thing, and
like it. You're good. You're
you
good.
advertise the Citizen Assembly meetup group for your community. Hey, like
Right.
enable your community to, your viewers to come together to organize their own events to discuss to practice democracy. So you could do
Right.
that at the end of
That
at,
makes sense. I think that's a total benefit. It sounds like a total benefit, and I probably will do that. Um, I like that idea. Why not? Because it can't do it all here. And so if I'm willing to make a modest commitment of time to the Egora process, then it would make all the sense in the world to plug it here. I like it. You've given me
and
really good ideas. Part of you're doing a good sales job as well, but the idea to do segments and intros was very much appreciated, and so I do appreciate that.
so to wrap up, so I want to
Aliens, are they real or not? No, I know you're
can
going to come
you
back to that.
can you enable screen sharing? I think we got to
Yes,
do
yes, yes, yes,
that.
yes, yes.
So
Participants,
so if you promote us, and I think it's only a good thing. I think you're just empowering your own
make
audience.
host.
I think it's actually building a stronger community, building
Yeah, I
a
that's what
greater
I mean by benefit. I see that as a benefit.
yeah.
I'm intrigued.
But the community also wants to support you in that case, and so and I'm already doing that. To all the other viewers, here's another great thing about here's another great thing about Egora is that you can support Brian. And I'm doing that. So, like I was saying earlier, we have the main Egora, which is for national, international ideas, municipal Egora. We also have a community Egora, and this is actually the biggest one. We have a lot of different things because some of these communities are default, other communities are created. So um, you could use this for your own student government. A student government could use this. A political candidate can create the community to sample their electorate, of what just the people within their constituency want. But I want to go, or like even an employee-owned business might want to use this for their own communities. But what I want to show here, so we have we have an Egora development community, which is for improving Agora. Are people suggesting ideas for
Right.
for what tools we should include in Agora on the next upgrade? uh, Stories we all should hear. I think this is a really interesting one. It's just sharing stories that we all should hear. There's some really great things in here.
Hmm.
I don't want to be clicking through all of this right now, but truths we all should know. Some of these are kind of general, but here's where it gets a little more concrete. Media we can trust, or businesses to boycott. Like we can use this for a
Hmm.
large scale action that doesn't require politicians, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's one for shaping culture. This is one of my favorite ones because, again, these are things that you do in your ordinary life. Because usually culture is determined by the, let's say, social and economic elites. Like why does everybody have, or at least in the Christian world, why do they have a Christmas tree in their house? It's because like some king or somebody, or how fashion gets determined is because some queen or prince or some wealthy person wears this dress or something like that. Well, this is a more democratic way to create culture.
Hmm.
That yeah, by crowdsourcing as opposed to top down. So my favorite books. This is one of my favorite communities. It's just about making. Notice George Orwell, 1984, is here at the top. This is a new community that we added. My favorite films. I'm going to save this in a moment because we're going to talk about aliens there real quick. But there's my favorite shows. These are all new communities. There's not that much content that has been created here. But in my favorite podcasts, okay, I will admit you're not at the top of the list for me.
Bullshit.
Joe Rogan is at the. I'm still trying to figure out where to place you exactly, but searching for political identity is here. I tell you what, if you start pitching Citizen Assembly
Okay.
and you're definitely making it to the top of my list. Joe
Okay.
Rogan is, you're displacing Joe Rogan like yesterday.
That's an offer. Whether or not I can refuse it, I have to ponder.
Yeah, no, of course, you got to think about it. But
No, and we're gonna have to, if Egora is truly just a vessel for refining ideas, then who wouldn't want to participate? Assuming you could put a little bit of you can make the time commitment. But in our next conversation, we'll have to talk about like what if, I don't want you to answer right now, but what if you had a really conservative guy go in and say rights come from God and this is that? It'll get really interesting quickly. And so, um, but we'll have to talk about substance and our beliefs and have a whole nother conversation another time.
there
But
are people who might not like this. I think it's an interesting thing to explore who those people are, what their reasons are. One thing is oligarchs, people who have power and they want to hold on to that power. They definitely wouldn't like this unless they see this as a way to, well, to change things and,
to infiltrate.
well, to change the status quo. Let's just say there can be some benefits to, to allying with us.
Right.
Um, so uh, here's another one: relationship advice. Few words of I love few words of wisdom. There's a new community jokes. Okay, so there are different communities. We're having fun with this. Okay, I wanted to, and then of course there is my favorite films. Uh, the Matrix is at the top for me.
Mm.
And you
I
can
would
look at.
always say that's the best, my favorite film for the longest time. I would say that's my favorite film.
Well, okay, so just to show people how easy this is. So, okay, so there's some data about this idea. This idea says two supporters. Again, a lot of these tools are new, so we don't have metrics on a lot of this. But I opened this idea. I looked down the list of people that I'm following, and then where is Brian? So I'm following Brian Askow. I click this button now. So this idea is going to show up in Brian's inbox, and he's going to be able to decide whether he's going to evaluate that idea, whether he wants to support it or not.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
and there are certain like default feedback responses that you can send, or we can have a deeper discussion, set up a meeting.
Mm.
Obviously, this is a pretty simple idea, so it's
Mm.
really just. But this is a fun way of trying to engage people and using
Right.
Egora,
Right.
besides all the serious stuff that we do. Okay,
Good idea. Really good idea. Amazing. Let me just
aliens.
thank you. Let me just thank you before you tell me about aliens. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really looking forward to the next one because you're awesome and it'll be different and it'll supplement this. And I'm just excited for that. But this has been fantastic. It's been really great to get to know Igora. I did click on it and for the last couple days and I was reading ideas, but this was actually very helpful to me, unsurprisingly. Obviously, it was helpful to me understand it more and even just in the last few minutes how to use it. Very cool. Great work. Thank you so much for joining me. Looking forward to having our next conversation to continue this for sure. Are they here or not?
I don't know, man. The one thing that I do know is I have a government that's robbing me every day, and so it's
Oh,
kind
so
of
taxation is theft.
uh, well, that's a more that's a more
I'm just
complicated.
kidding, but
Uh,
but go on, go on.
okay, so I was thinking about this a little bit, for the past few days, trying to get ready for this
Right.
question. This
Good.
would be the hot one.
Good.
And so I was thinking, what's actually really interesting and really in the vastness of the universe. So, like I said, I love sci-fi. I'm looking forward to. I think that's kind of going to be one of the biggest moments is when we do find evidence of other, you could say intelligent or at least similarly intelligent life.
Ah, gotcha.
That's
You're not
that's
just
the
talking microbes then. Gotcha. Good.
yeah, but this is actually the really tricky part. When you look at the vastness of the universe and including the time scale,
Hmm.
it's actually going to be extremely unlikely that we're going to encounter an alien civilization that is somewhat nearly at the same development as us.
Hmm.
When you
That's
think
interesting.
about it. So yeah, because even kind of like when Columbus and the Europeans discovered and discovered, well, at least for the European world, they discovered the Americas. They weren't that far apart. I mean, yeah, they had gunpowder, but like, it wasn't that big of a deal. One of my favorite movies. Actually, I have to add this to my list. Is Jupiter Ascending. I don't know if
Mm.
you
I
seen
know I
that
need to
movie?
see that. No, it's kind of new, right? Last 10
That
years.
No, it's not. It's been
Oh,
out for a while, and a lot of people don't like that movie. That movie kind of bombed, I think. I mean, visually, it's spectacular, but I think a lot of people, I can't. I think the only way you can not like that movie is if like you kind of miss the point of it, because one of the core cons, at least. Okay, I was high when I was watching this, so
that's
maybe
cool.
I did. So maybe I'm reading into it
Only
things that
good way to
aren't
watch a
really
movie.
there.
Let's be real.
But the one thing that I loved about it is it confronted the concept of a time scale that is so huge
Hmm.
that a person that exists, like some kind of this queen that existed, or this great person that existed, so many years have passed that the genetic combinations, like the DNA, has reassembled to recreate that same person. Like that is such a mind-blowing idea. So we're talking about a time scale of a civilization existing for like thousands, tens of thousands of years at an advanced state, so that this person is essentially reincarnated through biology. Like it's such a mind-blowing idea. But so
Mm.
what's really cool about this, what I love about that movie is the what's it called? Their technology, and they've existed for so long that their technology looks like magic to us.
Yes.
It's so, and
Yes.
and so I had another thought about this, but I forgot what it is. But the point is like, if if other aliens were here, like there's no guarantee that they would be at the same level.
Yeah.
They would.
We, the,
They're either
we, and
microbes
that
or
might,
way advanced.
yeah, the disparity. It's just so interesting to think about. I just enjoy thinking about it. Sci-fi as a way to reflect back society's values, and so this exercise to do it as well. What would I? What would it change? Would a revelation about aliens being here and so on change and finally give me clarity on my political identity? Uh, I don't know, but in recent years, because of all the UAP, UFO talk, it's just interesting, man. I just go ahead. Yes, sir.
So to bring back again, really as an activist, animal rights has been a big thing for me. And I want to say it as a disclosure, I was vegan for 15 years. I'm not vegan anymore. Um, I I eat animals that were hunted, that were killed in the wild, and not animals that were enslaved. So
Hmm.
and to me, I think there's a big difference. So I think when it comes down to aliens, I think we also have to look at it through the animal rights perspective. And the big question is, are the aliens animal rights activists? Do they also, what are their ideas that guide their relationship to other animals?
So
Um,
yes, are we? So I heard a thought the other day. Are they? First of all, it's just so interesting again because they could be so advanced and likely would be so advanced that we wouldn't recognize. We would be able to recognize them physically. We might not even be able to see, but it's so deep. It's so deep. The theories and the narratives, they're expansive, as expansive as the archives of Hollywood scripts, I guess. But it's an interesting concept. But um, yes, I kind of lost my train of thought there too. But this idea that we wouldn't recognize them potentially because they're so advanced. Oh, yes. And how would they treat us? This idea that we might be like a child race to them, and therefore that they might view that they have consent, where if we haven't declared our consent to them, and so are they animal activists? Well, maybe they look at us like children or pets, and take the liberties that we might with children and pets. So it's just a fascinating thing. I don't know. You can't disprove. Well, could an alien? How do you disprove that? You can't. So all you can say is, why is there so much talk about aliens? Maybe it's just crazy people like me. Yes, sir.
so I think the best that we can do to prepare for an alien encounter is actually to develop a better philosophy for a better system of ethics that even if assuming the aliens are aggressive for some reason, but they are still intelligent enough to understand, you know, our philosophy or our communication, they might encounter us and they could easily overpower us. But what if they don't because they actually learn from us? Like what if like
Mm.
if we can't develop the weapons to defend ourselves against them, what if we develop our philosophy so they
Becomes
can,
so interesting where they value us.
yeah, so we can actually improve them ethically, and I think this is it's
Become
again.
their guides. That's see, isn't that interesting? Is this an interesting concept? I love that. And only talking about aliens could have produced that little fun little moment of what if our society, our value as a society wasn't the best defense, but the best
Philosophy, man.
philosophy. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I invite all of you to check out my ideological profile, and even more importantly, to develop yours. Share it with
Yes.
me, share it with Brian.
Yeah.
It's all there for you.
Yeah. I'm gonna, of course, link it, and I will do at least a little promotion of it because I think I'm just so impressed by what you're doing. So, Cezary, thank you so much. It's been great to meet you. It's been a little while now that we've been anticipating doing this, so I'm glad we did it. Again, I feel really good about it. I hope you, in hindsight, will as well. Audience, thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time, Cezary. Soon, I hope.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Looking
Appreciate you
forward
so
to it.
much. Yeah, absolutely. Such a pleasure to have you, man. Great work. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.